Well, Gareth, welcome to the Business Spotlight interview, and thank you very much for attending. And Gareth, please tell me all about you as a person, as a business leader. Tell me how long you've been in business, and in your own words, what do you actually do?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I'm Gareth Davies. I started One Planet Associates in September 2019. I started it off the back of just over a decade working in the renewable sector. So mainly wind turbines, solar panels, biomass, anything renewable based. And I specialise predominantly in renewable consultancy and planning consultancy, really. Basically getting the big spinny things or the solar panels through planning and getting consent for them so they can actually be built out and deployed, which right now, given the current climate energy crisis and everything else, is pretty important, I would say. And also the environmental crisis that we've got in the climate change and working towards a net zero. Cornwall declared a climate change emergency in 2019, so that kind of fitted in quite nicely. That means that they're going to try and work towards the whole of Cornwall being net zero by 2030, which means that we offset as much carbon as we use, fundamentally. Sorry, I just got a call which I've just hung up on.
That's okay.
And yeah, so One Planet Associates, we effectively work with other large national developers or large businesses that have a high power consumption, and look at renewable solutions that could be right for them, whether that's solar panels on top of their roof or a wind turbine in their yard, for example. Apply to the grid. So there's obviously infrastructure all over the country that brings power to our homes and our businesses. And when you try to stick, the way that was set up originally was that you'd have large power stations sporadically spaced throughout the country, producing large amounts of power, pumping all the electricity down across their network to wherever it's needed. So right down here in Cornwall, we're kind of at the end of the line. And with the renewable energy side of things, it's kind of flipped it on its head a little bit. Down here, we've got great solar radiance for solar panels and very good wind. And then you try and put generating, or if you like, at the end of that infrastructure and either consume it on site or pump it back up the grid to other areas of the country. And obviously that's not the way the grid was, the whole grid infrastructure was designed. So it can be quite challenging. But we try and provide solutions to businesses so that they can offset their energy that they require from the grid and basically get a cheaper price for their wholesale electricity that they use for whatever they're doing. I mean, predominantly we tend to focus in on manufacturing, things that have a high energy demand, or down here in Cornwall, mining is obviously a huge industry that is very power hungry. So we've done a number of projects with, say, Imris, who are a French company, but they have huge presence in Cornwall with the China clay, or as we like to call it, the Cornish Alps.
Yeah.
And so I've done quite a few projects with them. They have now a nice little package of about 5 operational turbines and a few hundred acres of solar panels that's pumping onto their private network. And they've got an ambition to do far more. We also look into battery storage and things like that. So yeah, I set the company up in 2019. It's just me at the moment. I've got ambitions to expand, take on a workforce. But as these things just take a bit of time and build up, but we've been pretty successful. I think that's a pretty general overview of what I do and what One Planet Associates is all about. But have you got any other questions on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is it's quite out because I think, like I said, the perfect storm, with the financial crisis, the energy crisis, and the environmental crisis there. Yep. For your line of work and what you do with renewable energy, can you just explain a little bit more how the impact has had on businesses regards to the cost of living with energy and the awareness of the environment, and also just the cost of living with energy as well? So how's that had a really impact on the business, and how has that really impacted you as a business leader and the demand of work coming through for you?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of been bubbling under the surface for a lot of companies over the past 5-6 years, that a lot of companies have thought, right, okay, we're going to have to start showing our carbon accounting, showing how much carbon we're producing and how we're looking to offset that. So from the environmental side of things, it's kind of been bubbling there for a few years. But in the last 12 months, what's really elevated that is the fact, is the energy crisis, and the fact that whilst people have morally thought they should be doing something, people are now seeing it hit their back pockets, businesses especially, and they've seen their electricity prices triple or quadruple in the last 3 or 4 months. So the amount of inquiries I've had from Cornish businesses or businesses throughout the Southwest has gone through the roof, to be honest. All of them have started having their quarterly energy bills come through, and they've skyrocketed, and they're all looking and figuring out whether they can still continue to operate, still continue to have the same amount of employees and function the same way that they have. On-site renewables can, once installed, can create quite a lot of relief for those businesses, because they're consuming the power directly on site and therefore paying a fraction of the cost that they would have been if they were taking that directly from the grid. So it has been a perfect storm for renewables. And yeah, the amount of inquiries, and I would say every business really that uses any kind of energy is looking at this in a lot of detail and trying to figure out what they should do.
Yes.
And like I said, they've probably had that environmental thing bubbling under the surface for a few years, but it often takes an economic situation to really drive that forward. And now they're all experiencing that. So to be honest, we can't get them deployed quick enough, to be honest, for these companies. Unfortunately, the consenting process of going through planning is not a quick one. So, you know, we're still a business might want to deploy something tomorrow, but you've still got to go through that whole process of actually, you know, advertising it, going out to the local authority and getting approval for what you want to do.
See, and what's been your main challenge? I mean, as a business leader, and what has been your main challenge for you in your business so far?
Main challenge for me is it's probably resourcing. I've got more than enough work coming on, but trying to find skilled labor, not skilled labor so much, but people with the qualifications and the desire to work in this kind of industry is quite hard. There's definitely a shortfall in the industry for people with the adequate skills to take on projects such as this and assess it and talk to other business leaders and sell them the right package of the right kind of solutions, and go away and get those kind of things sorted. So I'd say that's probably one of the biggest challenges. The other side of things is that there's been a huge amount of government cuts, so our local authorities are hugely underfunded, and just my specific line of work is focused on getting the consents in place, dealing with a local authority that is underfunded and doesn't have the staff and the resources available to deal with these applications in the time frame that they should be dealing with them is a very big challenge.
Wow.
And that's not that, you know, I'm not having a stab there at the public authorities, you know, that they've been cut and they've had to make changes because of the economic environment, and they have to adapt to it, but there isn't the staff and the resources available to adequately assign to this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you know, you're right about adaptability. You know, adaptability to how the world's evolving at the moment. And I was gonna say, with that, I mean, what has been your biggest learnings? Say your top 2 learnings from, you know, so far in your business?
I think from a general business perspective is once you go, you know, for the last decade, I was employed. There was other people within a company that could do a lot of different aspects of it and take on the finance and everything else. But once you become a business leader, you have to do all of that yourself, and it's a steep learning curve. Of being able to do it well and effectively. And if you don't, then your business is going to fail. So, you know, there's not just what I do from what One Planet Associates does. There's all the other business side of things, which is it's hard, and it's definitely a steep learning curve. There is support throughout Cornwall, though. There is support in place throughout Cornwall. There's things like the Unlocking Potential and Cornwall Growth Hub, which have been hugely helpful in providing advice and expertise into some of these different avenues that you need to to learn quickly. So there is support out there, but you've got to seek and find it.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. And I was gonna say, with that there, I mean, what would you, as a business leader, if you had to start all over again, Gareth, what would you do differently?
I think having a clear project, having a clear business plan, which would allow me to progress a bit quicker, would have been a fundamental thing I would change. And by that, I mean that there's a huge amount of work out there for my line of work. But as I just said, the staffing resources is quite a challenge. And having a bit more clear growth about the size of projects and the types of clients I am now working with, would probably have helped me direct my attention onto finding people who may fit that, the skills that I need a bit quicker. And whereas now I'm being a bit reactive and probably coming a little bit late to the game on trying to find some people to fill those spots.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably setting out my business aspirations earlier on in my business journey would have been an advantageous thing to do.
I see. And it's all about planning, making sure you're planning, and like you have that clear map out there as well.
Exactly.
Start.
Yeah.
And with that said, I mean, what advice would you give to, I say, to an 18-year-old who's starting their own business? What would be the main advice that you give that 18-year-old?
To an 18-year-old, fundamentally believe in your business. And if you don't, pack up and go home straight away. You've got to believe in it, because there's going to be some hard times. So fundamentally believe in it, and you have to work hard at it. And you're only really going to work hard at something if you really believe in it. So I think that's the bit. I mean, I believe in what I do from a conscious point of view. I think we need to change where our energy comes from and how we power our environment. So I believe in what I do, and I think what I am doing is fundamentally right for our economy and socially. And that definitely helps to get you through the harder times when you're working on your own, and hurdles are presented in front of you and you've got to overcome them. So I think that would be my main bit of advice to somebody who was 18 and starting out a business from scratch.
So good. And lastly, let me ask you, what is inspiring you today?
What's inspiring me today?
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm a new dad, and I've got a new one on the way in January.
Yes. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's crazy having one kid, nearly two, and a business to run and everything else that's going on. But it is them. If I don't do what I'm doing at the moment and overcoming the hurdles that are presented in front of me, then their future is not going to be as bright as it is at the moment. So, that does inspire me to keep plodding on and overcoming challenges as and when they're presented to me.
That's so good. That's so good. That's so good. And